Okay, so I grabbed a few things that I thought would be useful for starting this next activity, Grandma's Chair, and I wanted to share some thoughts I had with you. Now, I saw some groups start this already. They looked at some of the examples that I had online, and they did a really great job in thinking out some designs that they thought would work really well to meet the objective. Now, what you need to take into consideration is that this is going to be an elevator that goes at approximately a 30-degree angle. And I did kind of remind you or tell you that I'm not going to measure it with a protractor, but I did give you a weak example in my first presentation that it shouldn't go straight up and down. It needs to go at an angle. So to create this, you have to kind of have something that's going to stand up vertically, and I've seen some examples where they use two base plates, but I think what I'm going to do, I got 3 pieces of metal hardware here, and keep in mind this is not the only method. This is just an example that I'm thinking out in my head. I'm going to use these pieces, these smaller narrow pieces, to stand up my base plate at an angle. So if I put one on one end and one over down here, a little ways, I can stand that up vertically. So kind of, I'll end up bolting those up, and then this is going to be vertical. So let me lay this flat again and envision that this is standing up vertical. Now, to do something at 30 degrees, I've seen lots of examples where they were doing a chain drive. So imagine that I place a bearing for one of my drive shafts up here at a higher location, and I place another bearing down here at a lower location. And then think of this as your triangle. So 30-degree triangle, this would be actually be a 30, 60, 90 if we were looking at it going up 30 degrees. So kind of envision that. You will have to kind of think about where you're going to put the cortex. And so if I had these brackets sitting down here for my foundation as the base plate was standing up, maybe I have to put this on the edge here just to kind of hold it in place. Everything needs to be secured together. Now, some other things, items that you're going to need. That's kind of the mechanical engineering aspect of it, figuring out how you're going to set up your angle, how you're going to stand things up from mechanical engineer. From the electrical engineer standpoint, you're going to need some switches. If you remember in your objective, the chair goes up to the top floor, then it has to stop, and then it's going to go down to the bottom floor and stop. So I'm thinking about these limit switches, and they get their name limit switches because they're going to limit an activity. If I mount those in such a way that when the chair comes up at 30 degrees, we'd want it to run into the limit switch and stop the program, and you got to make sure it pops back out. So we would have a push button on the chair. We'd want the chair to go up, and we'd want it to run into the limit switch and stop. Think about that from an electrical engineering standpoint. From the computer engineer standpoint, think about the program. Remember your spinning sign? You had an until bump, program starts, and then you had an until touch with the limit switch, and the program stops. And then what you would do, remember the repeat forever command, you'd have an until bump to start the program. You'd have your limit switch down here, until touch, to stop it. So top floor, bottom floor, 30-degree angle. Hopefully that kind of steers you in the right direction. Refer back to some of the examples that I talked about. So if I go to this document that we looked at yesterday, remember we had our mission in here. Grandma is too old. She needs help getting up and down the stairs, so she's going to have a chair lift. The switch, the button, is going to be mounted on her chair. We want it to run to those two touch sensors, one at the top to stop it, and one at the bottom to stop it on its way back down. I've seen some visual examples like this one here, so this is a different design than what I shared with you just a moment ago. Here's kind of similar to what I just shared with you, base plate standing up. They're using a second base plate to hold it up. I was using the smaller brackets because I kind of felt like that was a better use of our resources. Here's the poor example, the elevator straight up and down. That's not what I'm looking for. Remember, you can go to YouTube, look up Beck's Grandma's Chair. If you're the computer engineer, I bet you could go to YouTube and look up Beck's Grandma's Chair program and get some ideas for the code, because more than likely, if you're working in a group, you're going to want to be doing some things simultaneously so that you are assured that you're trying to get this activity done. I would like to shoot for next Wednesday, which might not hold true to other classes if I use this video in the future, but I'd like to have it running before the day before the last day of the trimester. I would like to use that last day of the trimester for cleanup and organization, because as you could probably tell, we've got a lot of stuff out and we've got to take care of that. So I'm hoping in your ventures here you get some ideas. I got 3 switches. I do want to point out these trigger switches are very fragile. You folks as a group have done a really good job taking care of things, but I do have a concern these can snap off. Please show great care with these when you are working with them. Also, the plugs on the ends, these are very fragile as well, but you folks have been doing a really great job taking care of the materials, and I appreciate that. So I hope you get off to a good running start on this activity, and until next time, good luck.